Hey guys, it's towniesimbuilds here, and welcome to my very first bite-sized build. Now, if you guys are new to my channel, this is certainly a brand new series, and it's very different than what I usually do. You guys have probably seen a lot of my speed build lore. I know a lot of you who have been with me since the very beginning. You guys know that I started doing a lot of build tours. And to be honest with you guys, I was always very self-conscious while building. So that is actually why for a long time I didn't do speed builds. But with this series, I really wanted to try some very interesting ideas. And if any of you are builders out there, yeah, I'm sure you guys understand how overwhelming sometimes a large build can be, and it does take a while. It does take a long time, you know, between building, doing the cinematics, the editing. It can be quite a while, but yeah. So with these bite-sized builds, these are going to be smaller lots. Normally, they are going to be either tiny homes or apartments. So yeah, I think it's something interesting, something different. And of course, as you can see from the title, my first bite-sized build is a tiny home Gothic Victorian. For me, I always loved the Victorian style, but I thought, hey, I'm going to take on this challenge. I'm going to try and make a mid-tier tiny home. So I think this house has, I don't know the tile limit per se, but it's definitely under the 64 tile limit. And because of the style, I really wanted this to have very witchy vibes, if that makes any sense. So I'm thinking the sim who lives here, she's definitely a Gothic witch, but you will see a little later on that I try to add like little bits of like a lilac or periwinkle color, if that makes any sense. So you get kind of like that little touch of pastel goth, and I'm not really too well versed in that subculture, but you will see those little specks here and there. Obviously, the build is super dark. I kind of went for this matte black, if that makes sense. And if you guys are on YouTube and you see other creators, there is a very fun creator. You guys may know him, but he is 𝗧𝗛𝗏𝗡𝗚, and he is absolutely amazing at doing the whole matte black look. You guys see it in a lot of his builds, and that is really what inspired this build. So as you can see, I got most of the shell down. It definitely looks very Halloween, very Addams Family-esque, if that makes sense. And I'm just going into debug and using a lot of the different plant features there. So yeah, I'm putting in some hedges there. I think these were potentially from base game or get together, I think. Just lining the lot there. And yeah, a lot of the exterior, I believe the windows were from the Vampires pack, but I really loved the cottage living door. It has that little black wreath. And yeah, when they did that color palette, they really committed to the full-on black matte look. As you can see, I'm starting to put in some flowers, so you can see a little bit of that more, I guess, that lighter, sweeter side to kind of contrast the really dark look. And then I just added some designs on the main tower. I think that little decorative piece is from the Vampires pack as well. Now, honestly, for the trees, you guys, I really had a hard time picking out what I wanted. I was going to do the dead trees, but I thought it looked a little too Halloween-like, so I ended up going with some debug trees from the Get Together pack. And thankfully, it did match the one seen in the back, so it does feel like it is in the environment. And I do like the pop of white. I think there's some kind of birch tree. I'm not really good on like botany and trees, tree species, if you will, but I do think they fit quite nicely there. Anyways, we are in the inside now, and I was really trying to figure out the space for this. I did sculpt out a little bathroom there. And because I wanted this kind of Gothic witch sim to also be a gardener, I thought this sim could be very versed in herbs or herbology, maybe even making potions. I did want to make a back garden area as well. So there is a part of the video I cut out. It was originally a patio door next to the staircase. But you know, sometimes you guys, you have plans, you have ideas in your mind, but it just didn't really fit. I don't think I could get a sim to actually go through that little door and have enough space to pretty much lay out everything nicely. So I did make the full-on bathroom there, and I actually put the exit to the little garden area through the bathroom. So maybe it's a little bit unorthodox, but you know, sometimes you do what you gotta do. I guess my logic was that, if the sim is gardening and it's a hot day, they're covered in soil, at least they can go inside and kind of wash themselves off. So it was a little bit of a, happy accident. We're going to play like, a Bob Ross happy accident kind of scenario here. But yeah, I do think it worked out. And yeah, I think I was honestly trying to stay within those tile limits. Otherwise, I would have made the patio area a little bigger. But yeah, there it is. It fit okay. It fit fine, I guess. But here we are. We are putting in some final details into the bathroom. And like I said, a little bit of those little sweet pastel goth vibes, if you will. I love that little plant from the Cottage Living pack, and then a few base game, or are they base game? Yeah. It's a base game body towel, and then I think it's either base game hand towel or the one from the Vampires pack. I'm watching the speed build, but it's going so fast, so I'm not quite sure. Anyways, we're moving on to the kitchen now. And I don't know about you guys, but I would have loved to have some object that would make a really clean, kind of diagonal, octagonal counter, if that makes sense. You guys can see the little bit of space there, but yeah, there's not really a great way to resolve that in The Sims. So I did have to make do. So we have the Cottage Living fridge there. We have the Cottage Living. Oh, I think that's it. No. Yeah. Cabinets. We have more cabinets from Cottage Living, base game sink, and the base game oven there as well. As promised, because this sim is supposed to be a gardener or herbologist, if you will, I did include the herbs on the sink area as well. And we're working with a limited space, you guys, so I did include the small table from the Cottage Living pack, and eventually I decided to pair them with the Vampire pack chairs. So yeah, originally I did want the Glimmerbrook chairs because they were like a full matte black, but I thought, it's so dark in this build, so I do need lighter touches to kind of balance it out a little bit. Going in here, I'm just trying to add a few details. I actually saw someone place pots on a stove, and I thought that was so genius. And I think it was Miss 𝗪𝗏. She's a lovely builder. I just don't remember if it was her, but I think it was from her. Yeah, I think it was her. She does a lot of really great, more suburban builds, a lot of really cozy apartments, and I love that she did utilize the oven space. Another simmer that I know is really good with that, if I remember correctly, is 𝗪𝗏𝗪𝗏𝗏, I think her name is. Hopefully I am saying that right and remembering the name correctly, but yes, they're both really great builders. If you guys haven't checked them out already, definitely do so. Moving on up, we are in the second floor, and this... Yeah, this tiny home was a little bit challenging. I had to take a little bit of leeway here when I was fitting in the bed. Optimally, I would have liked it to have more clearance on both sides, but thankfully, if I remember correctly, I think Sims can kind of scooch over. So I went with that, and I tried to make it as cozy as I could with the Realm of Magic dresser and the lamp from the Vampires pack. And I did a curious thing with the curtains. I could have gone full matte black here, but I thought these white drapes were interesting. They kind of looked very ghost and phantom-like, so I went with it. I rolled with it. Got those nice touches of white and cream to kind of offset a lot of the matte black here. And yeah, putting in a rug, but I will change it later on. I think at some point the rug was just a little too ornate for my taste, so I do think I swap it for a matte black, just a solid color, and then using the base game painting on the wall as well. Another base game plant there, just filling up the space. And honestly, I think this feels very cozy. I was getting sort of Tim Burton vibes. I was thinking of Corpse Bride, but also The Nightmare Before Christmas. Obviously, those two movies are really big fan favorites. And for some reason, I kept thinking of that little tower that Jack Skellington lived on. So I don't know if that's a clear connection, you guys, but it's just kind of the aesthetic that was in the back of my head. Over here, I'm just creating a small office area, so I figured that if this sim is a witch and they are an herbologist, a gardener, perhaps they could order seeds there, they could do research on other herbs or plants that they would like to include in the garden. And you can see my little internal debacle with fitting in the bookcase, but scaling it down, it does the trick. I did have to sacrifice the larger floor lamp, but yeah, I think it turned out fine. And then I put my favorite base game painting on the wall there. I was going to try and put it near the staircase, but, you know, I'm sure you guys know that sometimes things just don't really pan out too well while building. Sometimes you do find better options, so that's that. Anyways, over here, just trying to find a nice little armchair, if you will, just to finally complete the space. And here we are. We are, in fact, bringing back the matte black rug. Going back to the outside, I'm now going to clean up the yard a little bit. I did like a lot of the overgrowth, but like I said, I wanted a nice garden area for this potential sim. So bye-bye debug grass and flowers, and using some of the terrain paints here to make the little garden area. Yes, we are. Now, originally, I did consider making a walkway with little stones. I know that's usually a very common idea of like putting the base game rocks, if you will, in kind of a very close succession. So you make kind of a little stone walkway. And obviously, because in game they have mass, Sims are pretty much left to follow the trail. They just don't really have any way to like wiggle or get out of it, if you will. But ultimately, I decided not to do that. Over here is the garden area, and I did use some more fancy debug items. I love debug items. If you guys haven't discovered them already, you are just certainly missing out. These, I think, are the fence pieces from the Get Together pack, so it's very fitting. It's very fitting for the world. I'm trying to configure the large crop areas from the cottage living pack, and that is eventually what I go with. So plenty of room for herbs, for, you know, different vegetables, different roots, and different ingredients for potion making. Right now, I think I end up putting some hedges in, and these are also from the debug menu as well. I think when I watched Devon Bumpkin, I think those were actually his favorite hedges, and I totally agree. I think they are super realistic. And to be really honest with you guys, I think that a lot of the debug items in The Sims are at many times more realistic and just more aesthetically pleasing than what is actually in the main game itself. So yeah, definitely consider a lot of cool options here. Anyways, just more of the garden area fleshing out. I had the hose in, I put a bench, which I will change unfortunately. But anyways, I loved adding a lot of the overgrowth. I think it was really cool. And it just made the whole house a little lighter because there was just so much darkness. It was such a stark lot in a otherwise pretty bright world. So there we go, creeping up ivy and foliage there, and just going in and adding some details from the vampires pack because the house did have some wear inside. Alright guys, and that is a wrap on the tiny Gothic Victorian home. Now, as the very first build in the bite-sized build series, I really hope you guys enjoyed this. I know this was a little bit more of a casual format than a lot of you guys may be used to. But hopefully it does give me more chances to build more lots for you guys, and definitely experiment with more ideas that are out of the box without committing to a really giant lot size. As always, you know I love hearing all of your thoughts and feedback in the comments, and if you guys do have any ideas for future bite-sized builds, definitely feel free to share them in the comments as well. As always, this is still a no CC, no mod limited pack build, and I will be sharing the final lot specs along with the final cinematics of the build itself. And as always, this has been 𝗧𝗛𝗓𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏